Part 8. Nietzsche versus the Age of Therapy. We live in a time where healing has become an industry, where therapy is a rite of passage and trauma a language we are all expected to speak, where vulnerability is valorized, where mental health is framed as the path to wholeness, and wholeness as the promise of peace. But Nietzsche doesn't promise peace. He promises struggle. He doesn't offer safety. He offers fire. And so, his aphorism, "What does not kill me makes me stronger," often feels alien, even offensive, in the therapeutic age. It's seen as a minimization of suffering, a stoic dismissal, a dangerous lie. But Nietzsche is not offering comfort. He is offering confrontation. The therapeutic paradigm. Modern therapy, at its best, teaches us to identify patterns, process emotions, and build inner awareness. It encourages self-compassion, regulation, boundaries, and resilience. It offers space to speak the unspeakable. But it also contains assumptions Nietzsche would challenge. First, that we are primarily wounded. Second, that healing comes through understanding. Third, that peace is the goal. Nietzsche would resist all three, not because he is against introspection, but because he sees danger in the story we tell ourselves when we believe healing is the same as soothing. Beyond healing. For Nietzsche, suffering is not a problem to be solved. It is a power to be transfigured. Not every wound is meant to be closed. Not every pain needs to be pacified. Some sufferings must be integrated, not erased. Nietzsche dares to ask a terrifying question. What if your trauma is the soil of your transformation? Not in the sentimental sense of everything happens for a reason. He would scoff at such consolation. But in the harder, deeper sense, what if the very pain you want to escape is the doorway to who you might become? This is not therapeutic. It is mythic. The self as art, not diagnosis. The therapeutic model often treats the self as a system to be debugged, as a network of symptoms, schemas, patterns, and triggers. But Nietzsche treats the self as a sculpture. You are not to be diagnosed. You are to be created, forged, broken, reforged again. You are an artwork under eternal revision. And sometimes, what looks like damage is simply the cracking open of a deeper form. To Nietzsche, healing is not the restoration of your former self. It is the destruction of your false self and the birth of a truer one. Trauma without tragedy. Trauma is real. Nietzsche does not deny it, but he refuses to let it define you. He warns against turning suffering into identity, against using pain as a shield, against moralizing wounds. He sees in this a new form of weakness, not the fragility of the body, but the fragility of meaning. To Nietzsche, strength is not in denying trauma, but in refusing to become only a victim of it. It is in asking, what will I do with what was done to me? Not once, but eternally. Because in the logic of eternal recurrence, the question is not how do I heal, but how do I become someone who could live this again? The cult of comfort. Nietzsche was skeptical of comfort. He believed we had traded greatness for security, depth for safety, wildness for wellness. In his time, he railed against religion and morality as sedatives. In ours, he might say the same of therapy, social media validation, or mindfulness apps. Not because these things are wrong, but because they risk becoming substitutes for actual transformation. They offer the feeling of change without the sacrifice. They offer narratives of empowerment without the crucible. They offer the simulation of growth without the danger of becoming. Nietzsche's path to strength does not coddle. It calls for rupture, for dissent, for solitude. It calls for choosing the harder path, not because it is noble, but because it is necessary. Because only through challenge do we create the depth that allows us to endure. The artist of the self. In Exe Homo, Nietzsche writes, "The great pain that does not kill awakens the deepest forces within. It is pain that transforms." Here, he does not ask you to process your feelings. He asks you to sculpt them, to take grief and forge it into insight, to take rejection and refine it into clarity, to take despair and stretch it toward the horizon of becoming. This is no longer therapy. This is alchemy. You are not a patient. You are Prometheus. You are Daedalus. You are the artist of your own abyss. Responsibility without blame. Nietzsche's vision of strength does not come with moral judgment. He does not say the strong are better people. He does not blame the weak. But he does offer a choice: to remain in the inertia of pain, or to turn suffering into motion. This is not about fairness. It is about fire. The fire of will. The fire of creation. The fire that says, even if no one sees me heal, even if no one validates it, I will become stronger. Not because I should, but because I can. And because if I don't, the pain wins. What the world cannot give. Nietzsche demands something therapy cannot give you. He demands self-overcoming. Not the elimination of symptoms, but the forging of soul. Not the management of triggers, but the awakening of power. He asks you to meet suffering not as a victim, not as a client, not even as a survivor, but as a creator. To ask always, what kind of being can emerge from this wreckage? And then to become it, not with permission, not with apology, but with the full force of your becoming.